you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man, Andy Gillard here. Hope everybody is keeping well in the world right now. Now, don't worry, I know we've promised you a GamesCast and that is coming up. But before we get to that, I do have a review of the new Russell Crowe film, The Exorcism, which is released in UK cinemas on the 21st of June. I've been really looking forward to seeing this film. Crowe's become something of a guilty pleasure actor for me over the last couple of years. I had a riot with The Pope's Exorcist. It wasn't good by any stretch of the imagination, but we got to see Russell Crowe fighting a demon on the back of a moped. It was big, silly fun. So I was hoping that this would be some kind of spiritual sequel to that film, if nothing else. And this was directed and written by Joshua John Miller, who is the son of Jason Miller, who is Father Damien Karras in the original Exorcist film. And this film makes a lot of nods towards that original film and its sequels. Like, it really takes great pains to make sure that you know that this film knows about the 1973 film. So we have links to the greatest possession film of all time off the back of Crowe in a bad but fun possession film, with a twist that we don't generally see in these type of movies, in that the possessed is actually a big bruiser of a man rather than a fairly twee looking girl or woman that we tend to get in possession movies. So it was kind of interesting that we're going to get something different, something new. So hopes were kind of high here that it was going to be a good film, or if not a good film, at least a fun experience. And sadly, what they delivered was a meandering, listless, lifeless stinker of a movie here. It checks in at a little over 90 minutes, and it takes at least 45 minutes before anything of any note really happens in this movie. Like, we hear a few things that go bump in the night, but nothing enough to provoke an eyebrow raise, let alone piquing your interest in this one. And then once we get some demonic Crowe, we never really get to see the true evil which lurks behind. He makes a few snide comments and he makes the lights flicker on and off. And that probably isn't enough to make us aware that there's this big bad demon in this movie. It never really kicks off quite like you want it to at this point of the film. And I think a film like this, it either needs to be slow and ponderous and thought-provoking, which if that's the case, 2024 Russell Crowe probably isn't the man for the job. Or it either needs to be that or something that's big and brash and ballsy, which we know that Crowe can deliver. And whilst we're on the subject of Crowe, his character is basically a grumpy, disgruntled, grouchy asshole actor. Like, it's probably the least that Russell Crowe has ever stretched himself for a role. But you wouldn't know that because he gives probably his most one-note performance in years. I would go as far as to say that this was probably flatter than his singing voice in Les Miserables. He did not give a good performance at all in this movie. I did wonder why Russell Crowe followed up The Pope's Exorcist with The Exorcism, but it turns out that apparently he didn't. The Exorcist actually began filming in 2019 and then went through several delays for very obvious reasons around that time. And actually this filming didn't end until 2023. It's actually finished filming after he'd finished filming on The Pope's Exorcist. So whilst this film was due to go straight to DVD, it turns out that The Pope's Exorcist is the reason that this film is getting a cinematic release. That it probably doesn't deserve, to be honest, because there's not a lot happening in this film. I could see a streaming company using this film and say, we've got the latest Russell Crowe film, come and have a look. But unfortunately, I don't think that's enough to draw people to the cinemas. So where the Pope's Exorcist earned something like $75 to $80 million, I would be very surprised if this gets anywhere near that, because I can't see word of mouth being particularly kind on this movie. Sadly, I think they'd have been better off if they'd have just left this one on the shelf, unfortunately. If you want something of a modern-day possession film, I think you either go down the big silly bollocks route and go for something like The Pope's Exorcist, or you go for something that's a little bit more hair-raising, something that's a little bit more thought-provoking, and go for something like Talk to Me that was out last year. Personally, I don't think you should be wasting your time on this movie. So I'm going to hand you over to Stu now, and we'll pick up with the GamesCast.
And after that bombshell, welcome back. I'm kind of glad after listening to that I didn't watch it on a laptop screen, but there we are. See, people, if you want to send us nice films to watch, or bad films to watch, just let us watch it on tellies or projectors, not around laptops, but there we are. So we've gathered here today in this GamesCast, but I think we should kind of expand it to something else of educating Andre as the actual tagline. Because you didn't even want to be here today. You said no.
I did try and get out of doing this podcast several times.
You said, you two can talk about it on your own. I know nothing about it. So, we will educate you. Well, Jafar will educate you on what eSports means. Because as a layman's, let's get the base level. What do you know about eSports, Andy?
Isn't it people watching people play people on FIFA? Is that basically what it is? It's just two people who might be sat in different rooms playing each other. Like that's effectively all it seems to be to me. And from what I can gather, it's fucking huge in the Far East. And we know that Ash Dolan went to see it in Manchester, I think it was, not that long ago. So my knowledge is that it's just watching people play video games in its most simplest form.
Effectively, yeah. But you are then boiling down to what is watching football in a stadium.
Yeah, that's entirely fair.
Yeah, I mean,
I understand it because people do sort of look down on video games as not being a form of art. And I completely disagree with that. But I also realise I'm doing exactly the same thing with eSports here. That it's not a sport. But yeah, I get it. Yeah, fair point.
I mean, they're not a sport thing. I mean, you can throw in pool and darts and all kinds of bollocks into that argument. Because F1's not a sport, but it's technically a sport. It's motorsport, but there we are. That's different. But that is the baseline when you say, oh, what is esports? It's watching someone play games. That is what it is. But as I've watched many YouTube videos in between Euro games today, there is a lot more than that than meets the eye. Before we get on to the expert of all this, Jafar, have you watched any other niche stuff? Like, I know when I watched for example, I watched the hockey semi-final at the Olympics in 2012 just because it was here. I don't really care about hockey. I mean, Britain lost comfortably that day, obviously. I know the rules. I played it at school. But live live event-wise, I mean, I'll watch any kind of bollocks on telly or anywhere. But, I mean, we used to watch Kabaddi. When we used to watch the England games in the Village Inn in Wensfield because it was in the Desi pub and Mr. Gill wanted Kabaddi on after the England games. And that's just what happened. And I kind of got into Kabaddi for a bit. I don't know why, but it was interesting. But I have watched live field hockey. And it was, to be fair, I knew some of the rules. I didn't know all of them, obviously. I enjoyed it because it was different. So, Andrew, Andy, where are your examples on this?
Well, I was thinking about it, and I remember during the pandemic, did you ever watch, I think it's pronounced Yelly rather than Jelly, Yelly's Marble Run?
Yes,
where
yes.
it set up an entire... That was fantastic. And that's effectively, F1, but on a much more tiny scale. But I love that. Just silly stuff like that. I quite enjoy watching those kind of things. Something that's maybe 10, 15 minutes at most when it's that niche. Because I think if you extrapolate it out beyond that, like hockey's fine when it's on during the Olympics. But I wouldn't sit through a full season's worth of field hockey, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I think that's probably the most niche thing would have been the marble runs on YouTube because they got really popular at one point, and they were fantastic.
It was when he started like decorating the marbles as well and the course and turning it into like a proper event that people were betting on Bet365.
It was outstanding. I suppose wrestling's something of a niche as well. Like, yeah, I know it had its moment and its moment might be coming back, who knows, but it's still quite dorky, geeky niche that a lot of people tend to ignore. So I suppose there are some elements of that as well that would be something of a niche.
Talking of niche, welcome, Jafar. In terms of the same question that's more than likely going to be weed-based, that you can talk about, is there anything else other than eSports and wrestling that's niche enough that you'd say it's out of the norm?
No, I mean, not hugely. I mean, my life is just basically video games, wrestling, and going to work. That is, I'm just pretty much limited to that. But yeah, I mean, my Pokemon collecting, I still do that. I still have my TCG stuff. I mean, that took a bit of a comeback when Logan Paul took an interest in it. Now Logan Paul wants to be a wrestler, still thinks he is. I don't know why WWE think he's a wrestler, because he's not, but that's a conversation for another day. But, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stuff out there, like Andy says, there's loads of like little niche things that people, if you didn't know about it, you wouldn't know it existed. But there's little pockets of all these little things all over the place. Things like D&D. That's something I would love to get involved in myself personally, but it's something that I haven't done because it is so, as you say, niche.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I've never done it. The closest I got to that was Necromunda, which was kind of like a Warhammer thing. It's just like a subset of Warhammer. Well, I did when we were in our teenage years, and obviously girls were nowhere near us. And he had this cardboard beehive thing, I think it was called, and it cost shitloads. I mean, it was like 50, 60 quid for some cardboard, and you're talking like late 90s, early 2000s here. And we set it up and we battled them and everything, and it was fun. We obviously knew what we were doing in a kind of Stranger Things way, but that was enjoyable. But then D&D is something that I think, I don't know if I had the patience for it. Just this suspension of disbelief. If I can get past the fact that, yeah, we are being ridiculous here. That's always been my thought with that kind of stuff. Like, obviously, once you get into it properly. Like Critical Role, for example. When I've watched some of their videos when people who I like have been on there, and I've got no idea what's going on, but it's fascinating. Do you know them, Andy? Critical Role.
I I don't know if are they an Australian one by any chance? Because there was an Australian one with the guys from Plumbing the Death Star. A couple of the guys from that did a D&D podcast, and it was really enjoyable. But the problem is that I was like twice removed. Like I only know D&D from Stranger Things to any sort of, great degree. So I only know it from Stranger Things, and Stranger Things doesn't really go into it. So I felt like I was 2 steps away from fully getting the best out of it. It is something I'd really like to do, but like you say, I feel like it could go on a bit too long because campaigns and stuff can go on for days, weeks, months. And I kind of want something that's maybe 2 or 3 hours that you can jump in and you get the experience and you can sort of see from that rather than vesting 30 hours into something.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the whole eSports mantra, we can bring it right back around to the start, does seem to be invested a lot of time and effort. And when I was watching today that there's these eSports teams, like Wolves have got one, and Jeffo who knows these things, it's not very big. I mean, the Fancast have got more followers on Twitter than they have, despite what Jeff Shee thinks. And to the good people in India who listen to this podcast who don't know who Jeff Shee is by now, I mean, I'm kind of glad for you, really. Don't look him up.
Lucky you.
Yeah. But if I said to you, Andy, that just a quick Google search would bring up the fact that, let's take away the Tottenham seating plan from earlier, the fact that esports as a whole, how much would you say the industry's worth? Off the top of your head.
I mean, I know it's going to be a large number because why would a company like Fosun invest in that? And I sort of know, like obviously Ash has gone to see it and he sent me a picture and it was a big room. And I don't think that was a big event. So there's bound to be big stadiums of it in other parts of the world. So it's probably going to be in the billions rather than millions, I imagine.
So in December, it was valued at $1.38 billion US dollars.
Incredible.
And like you said, Fosun getting involved and building that esports stadium for people to go and sit there and watch people. Again, it is what it is. But you mentioned FIFA because it's the obvious one. And I said earlier about F1 as well, where the first time I watched it was when Jota played that FIFA tournament in lockdown. That was the first time I'd ever done it.
I remember that, yeah.
Because I think they said like when Twitch came along, Twitch was what made the big boom happen because it was easier. And the screen grab here, I should have sent it you earlier, but obviously you didn't. That I thought, well, okay, it can't be going back that far, surely. But no. But if you look at the World Championship of League of Legends, which Jeffo can inform us on in a minute, 2011, 1.7 million viewers. 2012, 8.2 million viewers. 2013, 32 million.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised that you started with 2011. I didn't realise that obviously isn't the start of it, is it? That's just... So the fact that it's been going on that long is kind of mind-blowing to me.
Well, you say going on that long. The first one, which I didn't know this, but I wasn't sure what magazine it was. The first actual electronic, I suppose it is an e-sport. The first example of an organised competition was by Rolling Stone magazine to win a year's subscription of said magazine on a game called Space War back in the 70s.
I mean, I do you remember the film The Wizard?
Yeah.
Where that's probably my only real esports thing that I've ever watched, and it was people playing Super Mario Brothers 3. So not really esport, but yeah, so I'm not surprised in those terms, but in how it's become this big, all-encompassing worldwide thing.
But with a
new phenomenon to me.
I mean, the Wizard was, I'm sure they used that as a kind of marketing thing for that game anyway.
Yeah.
But like the Nintendo World Championships as well, we never had it here. But you look at that Nintendo Direct the other day, and they're bringing it back in kind of game form where you got online leaderboards and all kinds of stuff, where it's just like certain levels from old NES games. So what's old is new again. So other than F1 and FIFA, name your games. What else is part of this world before Jafel jumps in and tells us properly?
The thing Ash went to see was, was it one of the Tom Clancy games? Is that one of them? Like a 6-on-6 people running around shooting each other. I don't know what the game is.
It sounds like Siege.
Siege, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Rainbow Six. I think he's already said it was. So I know they do that, and I assume it's going to be Pokemon. I assume will be a thing because it's obviously massive in Japan, and so is Pokemon. So that sort of makes sense to me. I can see the joined up thinking there. And probably your sporty games. So and even stuff like maybe Splatoon and those kind of games, I could see having some kind of appeal. So yeah, those would be the three main ones really for me outside of FIFA.
So you'd think so, wouldn't you? But they have got niche interest, obviously, and they have got an audience. I mean, I looked at one thing, but StarCraft.
You brought it in now.
Yeah, StarCraft, when it launched, half of South Korea were playing StarCraft. 4 million people watched a program on StarCraft 6 days a week. 20-odd years ago.
I'm looking at the pictures now, and okay. So is this people, have they got like clans and they're fighting against each other? Is this what this is?
So that's where Jafel comes in. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, StarCraft is probably a really good place to start, as it were, because it was one of the bigger games at the very big rush of video games being streamed. And I think talking about Twitch was a really good point, because when Twitch started, it was originally a website called Justin.tv. And it was one of the original sort of like cam sites, so that people just video called themselves the rest of the world and was just like advertising themselves to the world. And then as people became more available with things like capture cards, and eventually consoles had streaming capability built in, that every man could, or the every woman, or the every person could stream video games to the internet. And having this, being able to throw all this information out was incredible. And games like League, as we've already mentioned, StarCraft, as you say, everything about the StarCraft you say is true. It's the biggest game in Korea. You're talking about stadiums that have 80,000, 90,000 people watching the grand finals for this. You're talking multi-million-dollar prize pools. It's an incredibly big thing, and they take it seriously. And especially in Korea, Korea has this focus and drive to want to be the best at everything that they do, and they push themselves in every video game. So talking about League has a series of teams. So it's essentially, put it in layman's terms, it's like it's so many players on each side, and then they have to pick characters, and the characters have special abilities, and then they have to take control of the map and wipe out the other team in their base, sort of thing. There's a player in League called Faker. Faker is the biggest cult of personality for eSports in the world. If you don't know who Faker is, go and look him up for anyone who's listening. This guy is so big that League of Legends gave him his own skin, which went on sale to much chagrin in actual recent times. It was on sale for $500. This character skin for Faker. For the insane figure.
Andy's now if you just put baffled into your old GIF generator, this is every face he's pulling at the minute.
Yeah, it's incredible numbers that you're talking about, and it's split now. So there's a lot of video games out there, But the main ones where the main money are, you talking Valorant's becoming one of those now. A game I've talked about a lot when I've come on and talked in here in the past. That is now, in recent times, being dominated by a Korean team. They've won the last 2 major events in a team called Genji. You're looking at teams from all over the world, though. So talking about Valorant, because Valorant is the one I know the most about with BCT. You've got teams from South America, you've got teams from Europe, teams from North America and Asia. And when you talk about these esports setups, and you think, okay, it's not really a sport. They go to the same levels as what professional sports teams do. They have their own headquarters. They bring people together. They have their own chefs, their own dietitians, their own nutritionists. They check it themselves for hydration levels after sessions. They're looking at reaction times, how they can twist and turn diets to give them an advantage of talking over of like 0.2 of a second, 200 milliseconds and smaller. So it's getting into that F1 territory where the difference between hundredths of a second, it's huge. And it's a serious game. I mean, you're talking about League of Legends. You're talking about one event had a prize pool of almost $2.25 million, one event. Valorant's event last year had a prize pool of 1 million, and that'll be even higher this year.
So with League of Legends, I've just watched a video on Valorant, and that looks like that's a first-person shooter.
Right.
So I assume you're in teams in that, and you have to run around and kill the other team.
Yeah.
Is that why Wolves have got a eSports one? So they'll have so many playing a. But with the League of Legends, it kind of looks a little bit Final Fantasy-esque. Like probably the original Final Fantasy early games, everything probably 10. Well, obviously, I'm assuming there's no like storyline or anything to these games.
Oh, there's a whole canon. I mean, League actually has a show on Netflix called Arcane.
Okay. Oh, I've heard of Arcane. I didn't realise that was...
Arcane is League of Legends, yeah.
Right, okay.
So they do have a big a canon behind them, especially with games like that, because countries, outside of Asia, but mainly in Asia, they want to buy into this sort of thing. So they want something where they can consume media from something that they love in another way. So that's where you get, in some cases, anime or TV shows with Arcane. In some cases, you might get manga, you might get all those stories. There's a lot of stuff being put out there because it's a moneymaker, because people are so obsessed with these video games that they want to consume it in every way possible. And you're talking mega money. For example, within Valorant, they did a what they call a team bundle, which was a gun skin, a little buddy what goes on the side of a gun, and a player skin. Several teams out there, so I think there's 3 teams, made as much from that bundle in the first 2 months it had been out as they normally would in a year. And it's insane. It's everything's going back into running those teams. You're talking millions of dollars of investment going back in. They are cash cows at the end of the day. They can make a hell of a lot of money. When companies like Faust are sinking money into it, they will probably be making a profit if they can get the results that they crave. They really haven't so far, but the teams who do well and are successful probably are making good money off it and making profit, because there is so much money to be made in it through sponsorships.
And these skins are not real. They're just digital artifacts. This is the thing. Nothing's actually being produced. It's just artwork in a game, pretty much. So
effectively, they can just do a colour swap of whatever item and say that's the fashionable thing now, and people will throw money at it.
Yeah, or you could change the shape of a barrel, the gun barrel, and put a little dancing vault boy on the top for I mean, I'm guessing that that's already happened for Fallout, if it hasn't already. Stuff like this, and the fact that Valorant is. I mean, when I watched that PlayStation conference and they said Valorant coming to consoles, and I text you straight away, and here we go.
Yeah.
So
It's huge.
did what came first? Like, did Valorant exist and then it was made into a game, or was it a game and then everything came out of it? Or is it a bit of both with these things? Could some of it start with the eSports and then become something else? Or
So what tends to happen now? So originally, before the scene even kicked off, you had games that came out like StarCraft and stuff like that, and then esports kind of developed around them. And then what you're looking at now is companies are trying to create games to become big esports titles, to have a big following, and they're trying to design a game in such a way that it develops into something. There's been plenty of games like your Halos and stuff that haven't really kicked on into that. And then you've got games like X-Defiant now who are trying to then break into that sort of mold, but it's so difficult because in the West it hasn't really taken off in terms of like the standardized Western games. Like Call of Duty has a following in terms of esports, but it's nowhere near as big as tactical shooters like you see it, like Valorant, CS:GO, and your turn-based games like your games like League of Legends as well. They just haven't kicked off because for whatever reason they just don't have the popularity, and that source of media hasn't really kicked off in the West for those video games. I mean, talking about what you were saying earlier about them being a virtual skin, I mean, essentially with some games, they are exactly the same. Without going off in too much of a tangent, with CS:GO, which is Counter-Strike Global Operative, I think, in their game as well, number 2 coming out recently, their skins on there, they have a resale market, so it's their own marketplace where you can go and buy skins. And I'm not like massively on the values, but I know some go for like 20,000, 40,000 for a virtual skin. It's insane numbers. There was a case of a guy on Steam where he had some like $2 million worth of skins and they all got stolen. There was a whole case that went into it and they had to give it him back and try and refund him. But it's just huge money, and this is outside of a professional scene. This is what regular Joes like me and you can get hold of. So when you start talking about the money that's involved in that, you can see how it's a crazy scene, that a niche that has become so full of itself that it's building and building and building, is going to explode at some point and become mainstream.
I mean, just looking on Twitch now, and you talk about niche, and on the recommended games part on Twitch, right this second on a Thursday night, 25 to 11, there's nearly 350,000 people streaming Elden Ring.
just Elden Ring?
Just Elden Ring. 266,000 Grand Theft Auto 5, which is a 10-year-old game. I presume that's GTA Online. League of Legends, 137,000. Valorant, 107. Fortnite, as always, 78. Call of Duty Warzone, which is a free game again, same as Fortnite, 69,000. Chained Together, don't know what that is. Overwatch 2, Dota 2, Counter-Strike, things that have been there for years. I mean, I played Counter-Strike on my Packard Bell back in the day. Not online, and I wasn't very good at it, but this is how old these things are. I mean, didn't Valorant come from something else?
So I think it was called Shooter Game when it first came out in 2019, and then it kind of got its rebrand during the COVID years, or COVID year of 2020. So it kind of like evolved really, really quickly, and you got a lot of big creators jumping off the back of it. And you're talking about some of these teams and their followings. You've got individual content creators who are pushing it, and they've got millions and millions of followers and millions of people are watching them. I mean, you're talking about people watching Twitch then. I mean, Valorant have got a random group stage game going on right now, and there's 8,000 people watching it live. It's just a random. That's just on Twitch. That's not including YouTube. There's probably again another 8,000-10,000 on there watching it. That's like a championship football game.
Yeah,
it's crazy numbers.
So, is there a reason why it's so big in Asia, but not here, not in the States? Is there a reason it hasn't quite kicked off over here?
I think it's probably a lot down to the culture. I mean, you look at video games in Japanese culture and Korean culture, it's a lot more ingrained. I think I've not personally been to Japan and Korea, but I'm looking for videos and stuff when people do traveling and do documentaries on such countries. Things like the video game industry are so prevalent. You can even go into stores and you can get like an original Game Boy that's like brand new. You can go to the store and buy one secondhand. You know, things that have shouldn't exist anymore, or you wouldn't expect to find are just there. And things like the drinks industry and the food industry are so intertwined with anime, video games. You get things like Genshin Impact do like something with say Pizza Hut, or the pizza brands are available, or
better ones.
They've done stuff with chicken companies as well, American ones, and animes. I think JJK have done quite a few drinks collaborations as well. So JJK being Jujutsu Kaisen, which is one of the biggest animes around. It's so ingrained in the culture and the day to day that it kind of feels natural that it would. Whereas in the West, video games and that sort of culture seems to be, as with wrestling, seen as a I might as well say like a neck beard thing.
Yeah, and to such an extent that there's an infamous clip of Jimmy Kimmel. Oh, I hate Jimmy Kimmel. He's a bellend, but still. In 2015, when it launched, because you say over in Asia, ESPN in America show eSports now. There's an eSports ESPN channel. And sometimes it bleeds into the regular one as well, because I've seen it before when I've been watching certain things on there. But I just had ESPN2, ESPN Spanish version, NFL Network show live Madden sometimes as well, just to fill the airwaves. But Jimmy Kimmel had a proper go at it when all this launched. I think it was when YouTube TV streaming launched. So it was around about the same time as Twitch. I think it works now. He didn't back then. And he was basically, why would people watch people playing games and all this stuff? And people obviously said, like, wishing him having AIDS and stuff, as you'd expect, as the backlash. But that was in 2015. And now it's it's there, but it's not there yet in mainstream world. But it's kind of bubbling under the surface. Like, if you got an interest in something, like I mentioned about F1, again, during COVID, it's almost like COVID was a smokescreen for all this stuff to happen. Without going full TCA, but the F1 YouTube channel in the week, because what else are they going to do show when there's a race every 2 weeks? They've got the whole broadcast package that they show on Sky F1, all of the drivers walking up to the camera, the music and everything. It's identical to the eSports stuff. So you've got the virtual drivers in the paraphernalia for each team walking towards the camera and folding their arms and looking up, and they've got their name coming up. Commentators exactly the same. You've got people. This is just for Formula One. You go for the Gran Turismo. I mean, what the whole film was based on was the Gran Turismo Find a Driver tournament, which was an esport. So it is there, but it's not there. So it's, if you got a niche audience, it's bleeding through. And I'll sit there sometimes, and I'll go on Twitch, and if I've got 5 minutes to kill, I'll watch something, like, especially if it's a game that I'm thinking of getting, that I haven't got yet, just to see gameplay of someone playing it, rather than just a kind of glossed up version on YouTube of people who, they're paid promoters and they've got this on the down and stuff like that. I'll watch a normal person playing it on Twitch. I mean, I did it when PS4 launched. I did it because I had the camera and everything. That was when was that? 11 years ago? That you could do that on PS4? And when it had the share button on there, and streaming was already a thing then. So, there is somewhere, I think if the Fancast Twitch channel still exists, me and little Dan did have that drunken game of Pro Evo that one night.
Yeah, I remember that.
When he took
That's
his
my
top off.
birthday, that was.
Yeah. See, exactly. So you watched me and little Dan play Pro Evo on Twitch when me and Dan were playing each other on our PS4s. And that was just us pissing about. So now imagine normal, sensible people who've got actual things to offer other than being drunk, and they've got personalities and they've got followings. I mean, some of these people are bigger than Ronaldo.
Oh, yeah.
Easily. And I mean, I had PewDiePie on here because obviously everyone knows who he is. But that's where he came from. He came from this world.
Okay. Right, I didn't realise that. I know the name. I just thought he was some dickhead YouTube twat like the Pauls are. I didn't realise he was a Twitch streamer. I've never really gone any deeper on Twitch other than, like I said, that one night when I was hammered drinking Beaujolais.
I mean, some of these personalities now are so big on Twitch. So there's a guy who are talking about, because it works perfectly well what we're talking about with eSports. Some of you listeners may know a guy called Charlie, also known as Moist Critical. Now he actually has his own eSports team. I believe it's for Rocket League. But this guy, he started doing similar to vein to what you guys do, doing film reviews. Moved into video games, streaming video games, and then he's earned enough money to throw at an esports team. It's an incredible journey, and these guys are often, if they're doing watch-along parties and getting all their fans and stuff to watch along with events and stuff, outview the main channel. So whatever game they're doing, it might have like 800 people watching. Some of these channels, they'll have 8,000 watching because they add another layer onto it. And the games, they don't care, because at the end of the day, it's a free publicity, but it allows them to put their game and advertise it, and makes people want to buy the game or throw money into it, because they see, even with skins, they say, "Oh, that was quite nice," or "That's what my favourite pro uses, so I'm going to have that as well." And it's only like going to a football game and getting a jersey, and with why is Pablo Sarabia the first name that comes into my head?
And why is he not? See, he's always there.
He's always there. And getting your favourite jersey with your favourite footballer on the back. It's exactly the same. I mean, they are going down the same route as well. They're releasing jerseys. I kind of wish Wolves would release theirs, because it is clean as hell.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the nicest ones. But no, the Valorant one, they did the Call of Duty one, but the Valorant one they haven't released. This is a real one. Yes.
So with these things, like, who owns it? Like, does Sony have their own? Because obviously Sony having the PlayStation, have them creating their own esport league. Wouldn't that make sense for them? Or is this more of a generic thing where it's just, it's almost, I don't know, not sponsored, almost like it's a bit more organic, I think is the word I'm looking for.
It's down a lot to certain individuals or brands. So Red Bull are involved in certain points. But even then, it's just people didn't have the money. So there is I like to call them a t-shirt company in 100 Thieves. But they are a big brand within esports. I mean, that they have backing from, I believe Drake's involved in it. And you're talking about big people who've got a hell of a lot of money. So it tends to be more than that than brands. It tends to be private investors who want to get money out because it's a good way of investing money and I don't want to say laundering money, but it's putting money into things so that they can...
So that it comes out clean.
Yeah. So you tend to find a lot of the people who run these things are people with a hell of a lot of money that you've never heard of. And there's a reason that when eSports kicks off big style probably 10 years ago, that a lot of the biggest teams were Russian. Because they had a lot of money to throw in it, and these nameless oligarchs love throwing money at teams. And it's crazy, really, when you look at it. So, I mean, brands are becoming more involved, but they don't like to isolate themselves to like one team. They want to put themselves across the whole brand. So, Red Bull is a big sponsor for Valorant, but they sponsor the whole event because then that it's kind of like you would cut your own nose off to spite your face to sponsor one team or be involved with one team. Whereas if you have your whole brand associated with a video game or with a series of events, you're more likely to make money than to, say, sponsor a team like Evil Geniuses or Team Liquid or something like that.
And I just looked at KRU eSports team. Again,
True. Yeah.
From Chile. Yeah. Owned by Sergio Aguero.
Okay.
Hullins got one. De Gea's got one. Van Dijk, obviously Jota's got one. We know about that anyway. It's in. I think the Bulls have got one as well. It seems to be the thing to do, and money laundering in our case, obviously. But for normal people, it does look like that because PSG have got one, because of course they have. So it is more brands and influencers than Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo. It's more about the games than the machines. Okay. Because a lot of this stuff, like Jafar said about the training and everything, you think of I saw the thing about them living in an eSports house together, remember what was that thing called the Popstars the Academy? On it's not Popstars, was it? It was just
Popstars the Rivals. Where you had the girls allowed and whoever the boys were. I can't even remember what the boys band were.
Fucking hell. That's a blast from the past. It
is a bit.
Who were the... Oh, no, let's not ruin this. So your girls allowed, and then... It wasn't JLS, because they came later.
I know the answer. One True Boys.
Of course it was, see?
If anyone's going to know, he's going to be used to be first year.
It was the one that Lamar came from, the BBC one. Fame Academy.
Fame Academy, yeah.
Yeah, Fame Academy, where they lived in a house together, and they trained every day. That's like what these people do, like 8 hours a day training. And it is like you felt like working out like an F1 driver, because if you think about it, if you're playing a lot of this stuff on a keyboard, like the South Park Beardo meme, they're not like that. They're going to get carpal tunnel if they play that 8 hours a day. So it's all about dexterity of the fingers, reaction times. So you can't be a slob, but you got to do it properly. So from that point, from the sports point of view, they are training their bodies and they are focusing their minds and physical attributes on a certain thing. So the whole thing of anyone can do it. Well, you try, see how long you last, because you ain't going to last very long. So I do get it, and that's where the money comes in.
Yeah, massively.
So, like you've said that there's these teams and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Could us three, for example, just band together and decide to enter one of these tournaments and make it to play Faker or whoever at the end? Is it open to everyone, or is this like a bit of a closed shop kind of a deal?
It is a bit of a closed shop. So what they tend to do is they tend to do like what they call challengers tournaments. So it is like, even with anything with like politics is a good one because it's coming up. So you have to pay so much money in order to run as an MP. So you need to put so much money into it to be a team. You need to pay registration fees and stuff. So they do make it a bit of a closed shop because they want you to be serious about it, because they take it seriously. It's like that you wouldn't want the dog and Dublet to go and enter a team into the into the professional football tier, because they wouldn't take it seriously and they'd be a joke. So that there is a certain level of integrity, and then as teams go through sort of Challenger Series, they kind of like try and integrate them through sort of playoff rounds and things like that against lower ranked teams from the main sort of roster, and teams drop in and out. It's kind of like relegation and promotion ish. Or the players, if they do well in like a Challengers team, they might get called up to a bigger team, because we're talking big contracts. We're talking contracts that are worth millions of dollars for these players, and people who run the teams are incredibly ruthless. They will cut and change players as and when they want, and they will essentially pay transfer fees to move players to other teams. What a good example is a player called Aspas, who went from arguably the best South American team in Loud to who were from Brazil to the biggest team in Argentina. Would you do that in Leviathan? Or Leviathan, sorry. It's incredible the sort of levels that they go to try and invest in teams, and in certain cases teams fall apart. Wolves were involved in a team called Evil Geniuses when they pulled their funding from EG. That EG team fell apart. There's one player there left, and they won the grand finals last year. They beat out Fnatic, but Wolves walked away from it and wanted to set up their own thing. So they allowed probably the best 5 players on their day together to walk away and split up and go to other teams as free agents.
Classic Wolves move.
That is classic.
But so in theory, if we started playing like, I don't know, like World of Warcraft, we barely mentioned that one yet. By some miracle, we started playing that together, streaming it together, and got good. If you got enough of an audience, in theory, it could happen. It's unlikely, but it could happen, couldn't it? It's not going to.
Anything's possible in this world, but yeah, it's highly unlikely.
Yeah,
this
especially at our age.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many people who are our age and above involved in major tournaments. As far as I know, there's players who are like, the only one who comes to mind is a player called Angel. He's 37. That's the oldest one I know within the scenes that I look at. I mean, I think Faker might be 28. That's considered quite old. A lot of the players now are 20 to 23. Some even younger. Players like 18. These ones who have grown up with video games, computers at a highest level, and these high level games, and sort of grown up with the same. What you've got to start remembering now is that an eSports scene has been around for probably over half these players' lives. Whereas for us, it's like a very small percentage. So now it's only going to get bigger and bigger because it's going to be carried by the youth. And that's the same with anything where there's growth needed. It needs to be carried by the youngest people. And as long as the young people are involved and interested in these sort of games and interested in pushing this forward, it will continue to grow. But it's always focused on the youth.
And the young people have obviously got better reflexes, which is why it tends to be that way.
Makes sense. So, my last question then. Where would you tell me to go to start watching this to try and get into it? Tell me a good starting point.
So, as Stu said, Twitch.tv is the biggest place to see. The biggest games to watch, if you're into shooters, you can watch Call of Duty League. If you want tactical shooters, you can watch Valorant, you can watch CSGO. If you want something that's a little bit, as you said, a bit more fantasy-based, you can watch League of Legends. Again, we haven't even talked about Dota. If the sports, you're interested in sports, there is always FIFA. And there are games such as Rocket League as well. So that's like football with cars. And let alone talking about actual sports games like FIFA, NBA, and Madden. So anything that you want, go search for it on Twitch, on YouTube. I would talk about another one, but actually they don't deserve any sort of airtime.
See, but now you have to, because this is the point that people can get so rolled up that they feel like this, like they feel like they're Bolton Wanderers in the 90s.
Yeah, so I mean, the one I don't really want to talk about is Kick, because they are problematic. As a quick Google search, you'd find out all the things that they're involved in and doing that's a bit dodgy. But yeah, if anything you want to find, Twitch and YouTube are your best two bets. Anything that you're interested in, anything that you want to know, it's always there. And there's fantastic creators out there for every single game. People who are passionate, people who want to engage you, and there's people who have thousands of users, thousands of viewers, down to ones who've got 1 and 2. So if you want to interact with smaller streamers and smaller content creators, please do, because it makes their day, and it gives people a chance to grow and to enjoy what they're doing and be passionate about something that they really love. And if you feel like you're alone in something that's niche, you're probably not. Go out there and look for it, and you will find other people who are interested in it and build communities and build friendships from it, and things that last a lifetime.
Absolutely. There you are. I was going to say
Wonderful message, to be fair.
a perfect way to end, but we'd normally say it at the start of a GamesCast, but since Jafel dropped the bombshell that he's played something other than Valiant for the first time in like 7 years, just quick roundup. What have you been playing before we leave? What is this bombshell then? What is it?
It's really a massive bombshell. I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 at the moment.
I thought you were going to be playing something like Ratchet and Clank or something fun.
No, Baldur's Gate 3, which is essentially D&D in a video game. That, and I played Monster Hunter World, which is an old video game as well. Started getting into that. Just trying to do things a little bit differently and get some variety back into it. Enjoy playing some single player games. I obviously, as you know, quite limited to what I play in the past. So to hear that I'm playing something totally different is probably a shock to anyone. So even if it is that, and probably the biggest game of last year,
it does look ridiculous as well. I mean, I have most trepidations of, is he going to look as good as that on console than PC? But I presume you're playing it on PC, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I'm playing on PC. But it is probably one of the most beautiful games in cutscenes that you could ever see.
Hand animated as well.
It's an art.
Is Baldur's Gate the one that won Game of the Year last year?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. I'm looking at the images now, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of the latest God of War, but probably a little bit more tabletop version of it.
Yeah, it's isometric.
Okay, that looks quite interesting, actually.
It probably hasn't changed that much since the first one.
No. I mean, the concept's essentially the same, and it's something that if you're interested in fantasy, you're interested in creating your own character and lore, and it's a lot of based around choices and doing things that your own way, creating your own story. The options are limitless. With anything in video games, the options are limitless. Your experience is not limited to everyone else. You can make what you want with a lot of video games nowadays. So go out there and enjoy it, to be honest. And that's what I'll say with anything with these things is go out there and enjoy it. Make the most of the time that you have got playing video games, and make it enjoyable and make memories that you can talk about with friends in 30, 40 years. Normalise video gaming, entertainment media. Too many times we get shut down by boomers of this world who want to talk about banning certain video games or how they introduce violence and are bad for people. And the thing is, these things are a release. They're part of a day-to-day cycle of therapy for a lot of people. You know, They help a lot of people get out of bad times. They help people to escape from the world. So people need to normalize playing video games and being involved in groups that want to do these sort of things and coming together and creating community, because that's the main thing you should take away from video games, is that we are all together in it. Nobody's alone. There's always loads of people who are out there who love exactly what you love. So get out there, talk to people, and enjoy playing games.
Exactly. And when you say there's people out there, I mean, mine's completely different to you, but I was obviously playing silly things on VR. But so we've tempted Andy to the other realm now, and then there's a Batman game coming. But I was on there, and friend of the show, Tara's husband, was on the list of suggested friends. David, I've been on their show before. Has he been on here? I don't think he has. He might have said
he did give us a recommendation of a couple of films.
Yeah, voiced that once. Yeah. Nice guy, David is. But yeah, his name popped up obviously because it's through Facebook. But yeah, I was playing Vader Immortal on there, and again, it's more of a kind of an interactive experience really with Darth Vader there, and it's VR. You either get VR, you don't get VR. There's that, and then walkabout mini golf, and I thought, okay, I'll try. Exactly, everyone just laughs at it, but I thought, well, I had a month's trial to Quest Plus, which is the same as all the other stuff. You get 20 free games, subscription, whatever. So I thought, well, I'll try some of these. And one was the climb, where you're literally climbing a rock face and you look down, and then obviously vertigo, and it's scary. But walkabout mini golf is literally what it says. So you're playing mini golf on a beach, or a volcano, and all these kind of things. And there's a Wallace and Gromit pack coming soon, so you can play in Arbor Land and all these kind of things. But you got the thing in your hand, and you're looking down, and you've got a putter. And what are you going to do? You swing it like you would with a mini golf putter, and with the haptics and everything, the feedback, it feels like there's a putter in your hand. I played it for 2 hours. Standing there, walking, because obviously there's no leads or anything to get tangled up in. And you got your boundary sensor all around the room. So if you go too far, if you stray too far to the edge, it goes, there's a mesh comes in, so you know not to fall into things. But it's very clever how you can because you don't have to move around and get motion sick like you would, Andy. There's a way where you can you push up on the stick, and there's like an arch that comes, like an arch thing that comes up, and you kind of teleport to the bottom of that arch. But if you imagine like a kind of like a blue arch rainbow, you can just like you would with the normal golf, where when you play PGA games back in the day, where you kind of that thing, and it'll go over, and then you'll teleport to that part, and then you can look around, and then you set yourself up, and you put, and then you go over again. It's also playing Dino Golf, the pencil. It's great. But I played it for 2 hours, and I took the thing off, and then I've got obviously I went way too much. I got the little headset with the fan in and everything. But I thought, yeah, I've played virtual golf in my gaming room on my own for 2 hours, and I've had a great old time, and I don't care. And that's the best thing ever. I've now bought it. It was £12 as well. The full game, £12. I thought, well, there you are. That's for something that I can see it now as being the perfect podcasting game, because you listen to a podcast in there, you don't care. You podcast in one ear, the dinosaur sounds in another. Just having a round of mini golf on my own, perfectly happy. But there's leaderboards, and there's eSports, and there's an eSports community over walkabout mini golf, because there's eSports community over everything.
Sounds excellent.
Is there an eSports community over what you've played, Andy?
I mean, there probably is. I mean, there was definitely a news story about one of the games that I've been playing on quite a lot lately. And actually, it goes to what Jafo was saying about games need to be accepted a little bit more by the mainstream. So there was a news story earlier this year about Tetris, where a 13-year-old boy basically completed Tetris. Got to the end and it glitched out. And the newsreader who was telling this story basically said, well, he needs to get a girlfriend, the fucking loser. In not quite those words, but that was basically what they were inferring. Yeah, so myself and my other half, Katie, we've been sat playing Tetris. I'll have a go, try and knock her off the leaderboard. Then she'll go and try and get me off the leaderboard. So just been doing that. It's just a nice little fun game to play. And obviously it's retro as fuck. It's 40 years old. And it's more than that, I think the original, but it's the Game Boy version. So yeah, Tetris has been one of the games. There's a couple of games that I never got to complete back in the day. So I've now completed Super Mario Brothers 2. Finally, actually done it. I was chuffed. And I also did The Simpsons Bart versus the Space Mutants, which was impossible back in the day. Like, I couldn't do it. And the reason I could do it now is you can save the game as you're going along with ROMs. So like, well, I've done this tricky bit. I'll save it now rather than having to go all the way back to the start. And that was the only way to do it because tell you, those 1989 games back in the day were impossible. And they're no easy now with my years of experience on playing games. They're still as rock hard as they've ever been. So those have been the three main ones. But I've also been playing the Stanley Parable edition. Like, it's good. And like, there's this existentialism to it. And I just don't know what it is that's not quite grabbing me. Like, things happen and change. And I'm like, but I don't know where I'm going or why I'm going there. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I've played like about 3 or 4 hours of it at this point. I'm like, where am I going now? What's next? So I kind of want something to happen. I will continue with it, but I'm not loving it quite like I thought I was going to.
So Mario 2 was in American Mario 2 with Birdo.
Yes, the Japanese reskin. I can't even remember what the original was called now.
Doki Panic? Top of my head.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
The one with
that one, not the Lost Levels.
Oh, yeah.
We had the original,
the good one.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun game. Like, it's very, very different to what we know Mario as, but it was still a really fun game. But I've completed all of the other ones, but I never completed 2. So yeah, I've finally done that now.
First gaming transsexual as well, Birdo.
Yes, she was.
I was. I don't know. I can't remember what he said in the manual. I know that that's definitely a thing, though.
Yeah.
There we are. Who knew? See, back in the 90s, when people accepted everything. But yeah, so there we are. Has this exercise that I said was 40 minutes long, again, has not been 40 minutes long, has it convinced you to give eSports a try then, Andy? Because I've come over to the dark side, and it's not as dark as I thought it was.
I am kind of interested, especially in the more the League of Legends-y things rather than FIFA. Like, I can play FIFA myself. I don't need to see someone else doing it. Like, that's not interesting to me. But actually something like that League of Legends, which I wouldn't know where to begin with it. I'm kind of intrigued to see like what it is and more about it. So yeah, the stuff that I probably wouldn't play, I think I'm more interested in watching than stuff that I know I can play.
Excellent. And our mission is complete. So, this week, Jafo, thank you very much. Yet again.
Cheers for having me.
It's always a pleasure. And Andrew, take us away.
So next month is July, so we're going to be doing little bits and bobs. So we're going to be previewing the last 6 months of the year, and we're going to do a halftime review of a few things that we've enjoyed this year. I think we might do 2. We'll do a film one and a TV one on things that we've liked this year. So yeah, that'll be next month. It'll be a preview and a review of what's coming and what's gone. Make sure you've got us on the podcast, Cage Fighting Pod. And it's cagefightingpod@gmail.com for emails, at cagefightingpod on all of the socials. You going to say goodbye, Stu? You going to wrap it up?
Yeah, I am. I was just waiting. Let's just now see how many people just stop and forget all about this special extra part. Yeah. So when you say wrap it up, I always think of it. Everyone expects me to do something ridiculous. From next season, I'm not doing ridiculous things anymore. I'm going to behave myself. But yes. Accept gaming into your hearts, people. Do it and be proud. Goodbye.